Yeah,
Whatever.
James usually pushes all the buttons. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Improv FAQ. I'm your host, Bob Wick, and joining us today is a very, very special guest, our friend, Gary
Yeah.
Lehman.
Hi. And yes,
Uh,
I am very special.
very special. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being on, bud.
Yeah, no problem.
How you been?
I'm good. Keeping crazy busy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I do tech stuff at school, so there's a lot of technology being used right now in schools. So yeah, been busy.
All right, all right. Have you been doing any improv lately? Any online stuff?
I was doing over the summer. I was doing True Colors
Oh, yeah.
with Go Digital, and actually teaching an improv class at Eastern this semester.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, so I'm not. Every once in a while, I jump in and play with the class based on if you have odd numbers or whatever. But
Right.
so I'm planning and teaching a lot of Zoom Prov because we're Eastern's all online. So in that way, I've been doing a lot of performing. I get asked by relatives and friends on a regular basis if I had a show this weekend, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no, everything's closed.
Yeah, I get a lot. When is it? When is the theater opening? I don't know. I
Yeah.
I don't own the theater. Yeah.
Also, health things.
Yes. Yeah. Let me ask you this: have you been teaching like intro classes, like intro one?
I have so Pointless has been running online improv classes since June, but I have not taught any of them.
Right.
I mean, I reconfigured the curriculum a lot. Me and the teachers, redid the curriculum for Zoom, but I haven't taught anything because I haven't needed to, and we've had enough teachers to cover stuff. So I guess I am right now basically teaching intro one, like the Eastern class is not a performance class. So there are theater majors and biology majors and elementary education, musical therapy, all kinds of. It's
Oh,
more like
wow.
an applied improv class.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Musical
we're doing,
therapy.
yeah.
Yeah, explain that. Like, what is? I mean,
Uh,
it
I won't
seems
do it
like it.
justice.
Okay.
Well, it's they do a lot of improvisation, but on a keyboard. So they do like musical improvisation.
Oh, cool.
Um, I don't know the parameters of it per se, but it is like a therapeutic session, and they use music to interact with clients. I mean, it's not like you wouldn't just randomly go like, I'm gonna go see a musical therapist. I think it's for particular things. Use of music to mellow some people out, or I'm not doing a good job of explaining it because I don't really know what it is, but it is a program at Eastern, and I know
Yeah.
it's a fairly good one in the country, I guess.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I worked with a couple musicians who are really good at playing with improv because they're musical therapy majors. So
Yeah. Just really quick, because I finally figured out how to also put broadcast onto Facebook in the middle of your sentence. So just a reminder, thank you everybody. Thank you for watching. If you during this broadcast, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Me and Gary love talking improv, hence us being live and talking improv. So even if the question isn't relevant to what we're talking about right now, it would just add to the conversation, because this whole premise is the conversations we used to have at the bar, and from experience, those never stayed on topic either.
or on improv, but
Yeah.
mostly improv.
Mostly improv. I mean, improv at heart.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
so that's the improv I've been doing is like, it's basically intro one. Like I'm doing
because
yeah.
because I was wondering, like, how do I mean, I think every improv class or intro improv class I've ever been a part of, whether it's the one I took or taught, you basically have your go-tos, the zip zap zop and all that stuff, and applying that to a Zoom format must be interesting. Or just not even being in the room to read body language and see how the people would do on a back line and stuff like that. I mean, there's also philosophies you can still teach, but I don't know. It's not that I'm not trying to crap on it. I'm just saying, like, I just it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it.
It's not the same because we learned in a different environment.
Yeah.
Well, when we went through the curriculum at Pointless, I, specifically just set up meetings, and anyone that wanted to come, any teachers that wanted to come and help with that process. And a lot of them came, thank God, because, revamping 8 weeks of curriculum in 8 classes
Yeah.
is a slog by yourself. But also, like, the multiple points of view and experience, because a lot of them had been doing online rehearsals and coaching and stuff on Zoom already. So they already brought stuff in. So a lot of it is just how do you organize something in person online, specifically using the tools of Zoom. And it really is just like, what are the tools that you can use to set up a game? Or what do you change about a game, like Zip Zap Zap, to do it online? And it's actually, I won't say it's not that hard, but there are lots of tools that you can use. The biggest one that was brought in June was that if you add numbers to the front of people's names on Zoom, you can then sequence them. For games where, like Zip Zap Zap, you can't just point, because on Zoom, in June on Zoom, the layouts were all different.
That's a fun sentence.
Yes. But in September, they pushed out an update where the teacher or the host of the meeting can arrange people the way they want them, and then send it out to the users, and then everybody sees the same layout and the same
that's nice
spots. That doesn't always work, because if someone isn't updated to that client, then they can't use it. And if they're on their phone or tablet or Chromebook, there's all these parameters. It's a lot more work online.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I could actually, so for next semester, I'm teaching this class at Eastern again, and I have the option of doing an in-person class.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I could split it up into 2 sections and only have 8 people in each section. But I had never really thought this through to this level. If you are and you think, great, right? Oh, I want to be in person and do some improv. Well, you still have restrictions. You have to have a mask, and you have to be 6 feet away from everyone at all times.
Yeah.
And I ended up keeping my class on Zoom, because on Zoom, I can see your face. And if we back up, we can see most of our bodies. So if we wanted to do like physical stuff, we can still do it. And can you imagine doing a scene 6 feet apart all the time?
Oh, that's a weird stage picture.
Yeah. And also depending on, everybody has different levels of anxiety and safety issues. And I didn't want people like freaking out if someone got 3 feet to them and like pulling them out of the moment. And there were just so many things I hadn't considered about.
You'd almost have to like draw 2 circles on the stage, like you stay in this circle, you stay in this circle, and
right.
This is your spot.
And then you're like, and then also like, how big is the room? Is there airflow? How often do we have to take a break? Where can you go for your break? Only one person in the bathroom at a time. Like, there's so many parameters.
Right.
And actually, things have been going really well on Zoom. And so, these are most of the people I'm teaching have never done improv before. So it's an Improv 1 class, and they're doing great. And I was like, you know what? So I was not thrilled about doing Zoom Improv, like when quarantine ended and like whatever. And I'm like, right. And then I had to have a conversation with myself and be like, well, what do we tell people when they come in to learn improv? It's like, get out of your comfort zone, try something new. Just because you like something one way doesn't mean there's another way to do it. Yeah. And so I just, you know, did what I tell people to do if I'm teaching a class. And do I like it as much? No, but I've come to enjoy it. And
Right.
there's rules you set up, like, again, the tools. Uh, so on Zoom, we do a lot of like hide non-video participants. So you can turn your video feed off, and the only people on screen are the people in the scene or the game. Um, so that way they can focus on each other, no matter which side of the screen they're on.
Yeah.
Like we started playing freeze, and you just turn your video feed back on, and I'm like, you see a third person on the screen, that means somebody's freezing, even if they don't hear them say freeze.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the different, and sometimes I'll try something that doesn't work. I'll be like, okay, let's try this.
Let's refigure this out.
Yeah.
Has that been a problem, like equipment, like because not everybody has a new computer. Like I know,
Right.
like I had to upgrade my laptop because I couldn't do any of the background stuff. Well, that wasn't the only reason. I needed a new laptop, but
Right.
my old one wasn't working too great for like stuff like this. And
Yeah, so being a tech person, yes, and all the problems have to do with the users, which you can't fix.
Right.
And by users, I mean like the equipment they bring, because
Of course.
Well, like I said about that feature on Zoom where you can like rearrange the people on the screen and have everybody see it the same way. Well, that only works if everybody has the same settings and has the same version of the Zoom client running, and the equipment they're on.
Yeah.
So if they're on a phone, that's not going to work because you don't see the whole grid on a phone anyways.
Yeah.
Tablets, possibly. And then Chromebooks, I don't know if you're familiar with these. They're kind of like the new thing because they're cheap. You can get one for like $80, like at the lower end. And it's literally just a laptop case that runs Chrome browser.
Nice.
So it's a full-size laptop. A lot of like the DPS Detroit was giving out Chromebooks to kids. So there's a lot of students that have Chromebooks, but they're not a full-fledged laptop, so they don't have all the features that a regular Zoom would have. So that's limited. So this tool is great, but once I pushed it out, like not everybody could use it, so then it became useless. So I had to go back to like numbering people, which is fine. I know that works. So
yeah.
And then like, how do I turn my video feed off? I'm like, well, are you on a PC or a Mac? Because that makes a difference.
Oh,
There's just a lot to know.
Teaching improv and tech in the same day. Oh,
yeah. And if you're not a tech person, like, you get frustrating.
Yeah, I imagine so. Cool. Let's switch gears. So how long have we known each other? 15, 16, 17?
Well, I started taking classes in 2004.
Yeah.
And then that was at the Improv Inferno. And then we had to have met each other there.
That's why I first remember you, at the Inferno. Because you used to be there as often, especially on Sunday nights when Eye Candy was going on.
Oh, yeah. Who wasn't there on Sunday nights?
That was it.
Yeah, after the stand-up was done. Ugh.
Oh. Well, you would go there, go watch Motor Prism, go to dinner for 2 hours and come back.
And then come back. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what, 16 years?
Yeah, wow. And I think that me and you both, we both have a spot in our heart for the underdog, if you will, because I think that's how we would describe how we were 16 years ago.
Oh, yes. Well, not just 16 years ago.
Yeah.
For like 4 to 6 years after that.
Yeah. So a conversation I've had with students a lot is, especially like after like auditions and stuff, like how to handle if you don't pass an audition.
Yeah.
And my advice has always been, an audition is great because it's an opportunity, but you're not auditioning for improv. So if there's an opportunity that you want and you don't get it because, there's a lot of reasons why people don't pass auditions. But create your own opportunity. Like you kind of like we were talking before, like, everything's not, it's not the ideal situation we're in right now to do improv. But if you create your own opportunities, if mess around with your Zoom, you can figure something cool to do to, scratch that itch until everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, like Zoom is the new rusty nail, right?
Yeah. Oh God. That's a reference.
Yeah, it is. The ultimate bar prov.
So, I mean, have you had those conversations? And if so, like, what kind of advice do you give?
Well, yes, I've had those conversations, especially since I've had them for a while, but especially since I started being on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Which changes what
everything
you say,
yeah.
what you say, what you can't say. Obviously, like the audition room is like, I don't want to say holy ground, but something like, like you just can't tell what was discussed and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say like, oh, we didn't cast it because of this, which also is not empathetic at all. I start those conversations like I start class evaluations, which is, how do you feel you did?
Right.
And then, because that helps whoever you're talking to kind of focus on them. It's not about me and whatever I thought or did or said in the casting process. You feel this way because you feel this way. You feel you did a good job. You had your heart set on it. You had your heart set on it, but thought you didn't do well. Like, it gives me their perspective on how they felt they did, and then we can go from there. But it is always like, an audition is just an opportunity, and there are so many variables about casting, and who knows why. And sometimes it's very obvious why, and sometimes I'll have to say it, and sometimes they will. Like, they just did, they did a big no. I've seen people in auditions literally negate in like level 1 ways.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, that's not an alien, that's my mom. And like, and then when you talk to them afterwards, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that was bad. I'm like, yeah. There's things like that, and then we talk about like, how can you get better? How do you use this as a growth opportunity as opposed to a negative? And encouraging, I've rarely had to talk to someone who just took a crap on the stage for auditions. It's usually people who are, ready to have, be auditioning, maybe need a little more seasoning, a little more play time outside of the classroom, but they're on the right track, and that kind of stuff, and pointing out like, take a boot camp, take a workshop, go somewhere outside of Detroit and take some classes, or get into a group that's not people from your classes.
Stop playing with the same 3 people.
Right.
You need exposure.
Yeah. And just, a lot of it is just empathy and being like, well, I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about not getting an audition? Well, let's sit down at the bar and have a chat.
And you mentioned like, when you sit on the other side of the table at an audition, you understand it more. I think the frustration is because we're not allowed to, like, you don't want to, that audition room is sacred. You want everybody at that table to feel free to say whatever without it having any repercussions or anything, because we're all friends. No one, and I'm not saying like everybody's talking bad or anything. It's just like, you're critiquing, and it's not comfortable to critique a friend, or a student that you spent a lot of time with, or you get to that position where you start caring about the people who are auditioning for you, and it makes things more difficult, but you have to be honest. That's the only fair way to do it,
Yeah. And you're
And
also
you're
not
right.
being fair to them if you just cast them because you
No.
like them, or, you have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And then you're not casting. Then it becomes like, nepotism, or like, well,
Yeah.
you just have to be friends with, the people on the table in order to get cast, which, it said a lot regardless. But I can tell you, so, we initiated this chat because, you and I went through many auditions before getting stuff.
Yeah.
But I can, you always grouse about it, right? They only got it because they know so-and-so. Make ourselves feel better. And the first time I was on the other side of the table, which was for Misconnections, so launch group,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, that's not true.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, of course we say like, oh, I've taught this person 4 times, or like, I'm friends with this person. You say those things to qualify what you're saying, and everybody feels open to talk about it. And I've, people have called people out about things like that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, well, I mean, you guys hang out at the bar a lot, like,
Right.
or, so what are you saying? And, you just point this stuff out. And, we've had people recuse themselves because they're dating the person who's auditioning.
Yeah.
And, like, all that stuff is there. It's not like we don't talk about it. And it's not like we don't agonize over decisions and, all of it.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the first time I was on the other side of the table, we had a 9-person cast. I didn't know.
And I believe we were up till midnight and still wasn't
Oh
done,
my!
So
yeah, that was that was nuts. But I learned a lot from that. Like that same, because I remember like not getting auditions and being just like, what am I doing wrong, and why can't they tell me? Like if I'm supposed to learn from this or grow, shouldn't you give me an answer? Like I kind of know. I mean, and to be honest, your instructors probably gave you like the same note over and over again, and you weren't taking it. And I mean that's not the only reason, but I've noticed the times I've had these conversations with students, that's been kind of the case. Just you got the one note, you can tell me the note because you've gotten it so many times. Would you please take the note and see what happens?
or what have you done to work on it?
Right. Yeah. Because not everything's an easy fix. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times, like, you'll say whatever the issue was or note, and they're like, oh yeah, I get told that all the time. And then I'm like, well,
and
it's not like it wasn't. If you've been told it once, you can kind of
right.
go like, oh, it was just that teacher and that's their thing. Yeah. Like, but if 5 people in an entire audition panel have said like, you need to work on X, then you need to work on X.
Right.
Even if you don't think you do. That's the other thing, is like self-realization. Like you might think you're doing great. I remember getting a note from Christy Bonsdale, who was my launch group coach, who was like, you smile on everything. And I was like, what? She's like, everything you do, you're smiling. Like even when you're being angry or you're sad, you're smiling. Like Gary is smiling because you're so happy to be on stage doing improv. And I was like, do I? And I fucking was, man. I was smiling all the time.
Right.
And like, how am I supposed to realize that? I can't see my own face.
Yeah.
And how do you work on that? Like, that was when I first like got into like physical performing, because I was like, I have to control my face? Well, yeah, duh. It's called acting.
God.
It took me forever to work on that.
Oh, well, I still work on eye contact. Oh, you've played with me enough times to know, like, I have an issue with I've always had an issue with eye contact. I don't make it, especially on stage, because I'm trying to, like, if I make eye contact, I'm gonna break, or like I
What do you
can't.
mean? What do you mean?
Ugh,
What are you talking about?
wait, what? So yeah, I mean, but I have actively during scenes like look at your scene partner. I like it's been nice like playing with like Peterson because I have to look at him, or it gets really awkward.
Well, yeah, that's a two-man, right? So like,
Right.
you
Yeah,
can't
we're
not
doing a
look.
mono scene. Just like I'm just gonna focus on this this pot I'm making in the scene.
Yes, doing a TJ and Dave intro would be the most difficult,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
you stare at each other for what feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah. My favorite note though. Oh my god, her name just left my brain. She's in New York. She works for Conan and those guys. She was on main stage in Detroit. God, what's her name? Uh,
I think I know who you mean, and I can't remember her name either.
oh my god. Anyways, my improv teacher used to say "best day ever" because I used to
Oh,
negate
Jenny, right?
Jenny. Yes. What's her last name? That's this is
Uh,
good. This is good audio.
yeah. No, but she's on that one bit on the Seth Meyers show, right? Where the
Yes,
different
yes,
perspectives.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was great, and she really helped because I always was trying to add conflict, like, hey, we're having hamburgers today. I hate hamburgers. I never want a hamburger. Or best idea ever. We're gonna make the tallest, yes, best idea ever. We're
Jenny
going,
Hagel.
yes.
Jenny
It
Hagel.
was
She was
wonderful.
great.
I could see her face. I could hear her voice. I couldn't think of her name. Like me and names. That's another note I give myself. Like learn names. That's why that's probably like why I would love Zoom classes. Like you have to put your
Oh
name
yeah,
down.
they're great. So when I'm teaching literal school classes, this
Right.
is the first year I've known everybody's name like by
Uh-huh.
the end of the first day. Because their names are right on the screen.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Funny story about names as a side, okay, bar chat. Thursday's EMU class, I have a waiting room on Zoom, so I can't get bombed. And this name pops up, Susan Rogers or something, who is not on my roster. And I'm like, who the hell is Susan? So I sent a message to the waiting room saying, like, I don't know Susan Rogers. Who is this? You're not on my roster. And no one replied. And thankfully, I checked my inbox, and it was one of my current students who had created a character name in one of her acting classes on Zoom and then forgot to change it. And once you've connected, you can't change it. And she's like,
Okay.
hi, I'm Susan. I had to change it for a character thing, so I called her, and then I called her Susan for the whole class. Because I'm funny.
She should have took the class. I hope she took the class in character.
She did not, but I didn't think of that. That'd be funny.
Yeah. Well, next time.
Yeah. And when I went to IO, I did the summer intensive, which is like 5 weeks long, which I think was the best intensive I ever took. That was the thing that got like changed my performance, like me as an improviser, the most. Because I got a lot of notes that I'd gotten before, but I also got a lot of notes that I hadn't because, you have 4 days in a row for 6 hours a day with the same teacher.
Yeah.
For 5 weeks in a row. And so I kept, I got a lot of notes that I could work on. And also it was a style of play that wasn't being taught in Detroit at the time, which was Herald based. scene work, and scene work is scene work on some level, but then when you're trying to incorporate it into um, a form like Harold, where there's a lot of recurring things, because typically, and maybe I'm remembering incorrectly since we both took classes around the same time, so maybe you this is not the case, but looking back, I feel like we did a lot of scene work, but we didn't do a lot of forms.
I agree. I agree.
So
Everything was montage.
yeah, and in a montage, you don't have to remember names
No.
or anything really, because there wasn't a lot of callbacks, or at least
Yeah.
I don't remember them being taught a lot. Well, especially at Second City, because you're performing for
Sketch.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you normally wouldn't come back to things because you're generating material. Anyways, that style of play was just connected with me more, so I just, found my anchor, for lack of a better term.
No, I remember when you went out because when you came back, there was something different about you. I mean, something clicked, and
Yeah,
it was
that's it.
really cool, and it like it inspired me to like search elsewhere, because I just thought, hey, I went to Second City. I got this.
Yeah.
Like there is more.
Yeah, and that's, I went to Chicago and it did a thing for me. It's not a knock against,
No.
where we were trained, how we were trained, and who taught
Oh,
us.
absolutely.
Trust me, I went in with a really good base, because I had some people in my class that I was like, what the fuck are you doing? um, you can't go wrong with, all the teachers that we had.
Oh
We're
no,
now
we had
working.
great teachers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're working in New York and all these other
Right.
places. So
Yeah. No, but I do like what you said. There's a style that clicked with you, and it just reinforced everything they said, but also helped you see how to apply it in a different way.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think that's true with a lot of people. There's so many ways to improvise. I mean, how many times have you took a character class? That's such and everybody has their way of doing it, and what it means to them, and how to start, and what's important, and all this stuff, and it's all good. But there are I'm thinking in my head there are particular ones that really stuck with me, and it's not knocking the other ones, like it's just preference,
that's what clicked with you, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why so many people can teach the same subject, and because a clown workshop from who's the guy that was at the last diff? Chad. Taking a clown class with Chad is way different than taking a clown class from Isaac.
Oh, right.
They've both studied clowning, and then it's totally different if you took clowning with Kristen from Philadelphia.
Right.
I can't remember her last name, but we've had 3 different people teach clowning at diff, and they're all totally different.
Yeah, the thing I like about clowning, like it can't be defined. So teaching something that can't really be defined is, I find fascinating. Like, you'll know it when you're doing it. All right.
Apparently, it's high, high emotion and physicality. That's what I think it. If I had to distill it down, it'd be that. Because James brought in a guy that he and I had as a teacher at Second City when we went and did a physical workshop, and he pissed me off in Chicago, because there's this exercise that I couldn't do, which was like letting everything go and just showing yourself, whatever that meant. And what it meant was, if he saw what he wanted to see, and some people can just drop their protections really easily, and I could not. Like, literally, I couldn't do the exercise. So he told me to just sit down, and I was fucking pissed the rest of the day.
I can just see him pouting Gary, like, I didn't want to do the exercise anyway.
Yeah, right. Well, this is stupid.
This is stupid.
Whatever this guy says,
the point of it is just dumb.
bunk. It's just a bunch of bunk.
Yeah.
Anyways, he came to Detroit. James has stayed in contact with me.
Yeah.
He did like a clowning workshop, and it was all Like I'd never sweated so much in an improv workshop.
Oh yeah, that's the one we started like with yoga, and then yeah, the big emotion stuff. Yeah, that was a great workshop.
Yeah. So
yeah, just on the subject of emotions, like how many times have you given a note like I need it bigger, like I need a bigger emotion, like
yeah. Usually that just translates into, can you have an emotion?
right,
Just one. Different from what your normal is, right? Because you already said, like you back in the day were trying to bring in conflict, right? So that's a thing you're doing. So people are always trying to be funny. Ha ha ha!
Oh.
Everything's great. Some people are always angry because that's the emotion we go to as humans.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Plus, I think it's just such an easy one to make big, because when you're angry, you're already up there, you're already revved up as it is. So heightening that is just more of the same but bigger,
Yeah, somebody said once, I think at a workshop, that anger isn't an emotion; it's a filter for other emotions. Like if you're angry, you're not actually angry. You're angry because of something else, so you're reacting to it. Right. So you're angry because you're sad. You're angry because you're disappointed. You're angry because you're hurt, and that's the filter you go through. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I love that.
Now it's become more nuanced. Yeah. Are you happy, mad? Are you angry? Are you happy, angry? Are you sad, angry? Are you disappointed, angry? But also that connects like to vulnerability, which is why I couldn't do that exercise with that clowning guy, because it was like, what do you mean drop all of my protections? Like that's what got me through middle school.
No, thank you.
No. Girl, I was a gay boy in the UP in the 80s. Like I got battlefield shit up. There are trenches and minefields and battleships off the coast that you can't even see. Like
Gay Boy in the UP in the 80s is my favorite Cure song.
Yeah. They didn't want them to perform it on SNL. That's why they're banned.
Right.
That's a big one too, is vulnerability of like, letting people in, but also letting yourself out. And that's the hardest
accepting that you're wrong, accepting that you did, you're not perfect. That's that's an interesting, like Garrett does a lot of that with his characters. Like, like if he gets called, we were talking about that. Like if someone calls you an asshole, it's more interesting to be hurt by it than to get angry, to react, like
right. Well, anger keeps
as a filter. Yeah.
The other reason I think we go to anger is because it keeps the wall up. Reinforces the wall. And being hurt lowers them. You're letting people in.
Well, you're also lowering your status, which people tend to not do. Like they fight for their. I mean, which makes sense. We do that in real life, but you're trying to show a chunk of life in 3 minutes. You gotta play the short game sometimes.
Well, and the flip of what you asked is true too. Like, how many times have I had to tell people to get bigger? I mean, I've had to tell people to, rein it in too. Like, I know I always say like, don't be subtle, but what I mean is don't be coy or subtle about your intentions. You need to be upfront with those and improv so we can know what the hell you're thinking and we can react to it. I'm not talking about emotions. Like,
well, first of all, just a really quick break. Just a reminder for those who are watching, if you have any questions, even if it's not about what we're currently talking about, we can, as you notice, we can flip on a dime here. So please, feel free to leave a comment. But I was just thinking when you were talking about that, when I've given the note, hey, play bigger, 90% of the time I am the student would tell me I am getting to it. I'm like, well, like the reveal is not going to be as great as you think it is, because you're not building that kind of tension. You're just kind of like,
Listen, you're not on an Amtrak train in Chicago slowly pulling into the station. Like, Just get to it.
Get to it.
Trust me. Slow builds are great, but they're great in scripted stuff, right? Because you know it's coming, and everyone else knows it's coming. But in improv, we don't know what's coming, and someone could jump off the back line, introduce something new, and there goes your slow build.
Yep, we'll never know.
Correct.
I'm not saying that they're bad and you should never do them, but if it's your go-to thing, I don't know if you're being as entertaining as you could be. We're storytellers. We're doing scenes that never been written, and sometimes you got to really think about the pacing and how that is affecting your audience, and is the payoff going to be as strong as you think it's going to be? And sometimes it just takes stage time to get a good handle on that.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, emotions are hard. Especially being an emotional person.
Emotions. So with the Zoom, like, what notes are you giving out the most frequent?
So in their class teaching?
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah. So I'm not doing notes so much because it's not a performance-based class. So the thrust of the class is like how you can take improv principles and apply it to whatever field they're in. Kind of more like a improv corporate workshop would teach. That's not to say that I don't teach performance games or that kind of thing, but I give notes like I can't help sometimes giving performance notes. So there's a guy in my class who has these awesome initial reactions to things, like facial stuff. Like he just has these awesome reactions, but he translates usually it's like he's trying to think like what's going on. Mm-hmm. And he has these facial reactions. And I was like, dude, use those. you have awesome reactions, and you're like fighting them to try and think of what the right response is. Just go with that. I've introduced the concept from the decon of commentary, especially for non-performance background people, of like, if you are feeling it, it's okay to have that be what you're feeling in the game or the scene.
Right.
That seemed to help a lot. Because a lot of times they're like, well, that's me reacting, but what's the other person expecting me to do? Which is a common beginning improv thing, right? I'm like, that does it matter? Yes. Is that your focus? No. What's your initial reaction? Just use it. I give that in a lot. Oh, and then this past week, we got to specificity and not being vague, and how much that helps. We did 3-line scenes, and I just did the first round. I didn't call them anything like other than the rules. Right. And we talked about it, and one of the students was like, after the second round, that round felt better because we had stuff to say and to talk about. I was like, oh, you mean there was content to your scene? We refer to that as specificity. If you don't say painting, say the scream. Right. Don't say, dishes, say Corningware. It's the more specific you are, the more you have to react to. So it's those type of things. That's the stuff we're talking about.
I think that's the one detail of truth in comedy that always stuck out to me when Sharon was going off like, I remember when Michael Myers was on stage.
I was going to say the points that stood out between all the name dropping.
Yeah. And he wouldn't say peanut butter. He would say Jif, extra crunchy. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's what Mike Myers would say from Canada.
Yeah, that's how Canadians talk. And then he would always use a Scottish accent when saying it. So,
well, that took him far.
Hey, man,
That train has sailed, but it took him a long way.
that train has sailed indeed.
See, and also, you know what the other thing I probably talk about is mistakes. Like, don't correct
Oh, I love
yourself.
them.
Now you're in a world where trains sail. So
I love a good mistake. Like 90% of the stuff of my quotes on the green room wall are mistakes that I turn to gold because that's just the way I talk.
yeah, yeah, like a lot of a lot of level 1 and 2 teaching is just um, getting people okay with doing this stuff. Meaning not doing improv, but like
Right.
um, opening themselves up emotionally, acting silly in front of other people, um, filtering things through a character. I had a student ask in my class, um, how do you do this without feeling like you're lying? And I was like, ooh,
That's a wow.
that is a
That's a
that's a really
doozy. I
good,
like that.
yeah, that's a really good question. I'm like, I assume you mean like you are playing a game, but you're playing as yourself and you feel like you're lying because you yourself would never say or do these things, right? And so we had a conversation about character and point of view and how character creates, gives you a filter and, so you can do these things and not feel like you yourself are on stage doing these crazy things and saying these crazy things and walk off stage and feel like you're a horrible person because you yelled at your aunt, who's not your aunt, right? And I said, that's why we do characters. And then I went off and to the like, well, but it's also improv. So what comes out of your mouth, the audience knows you're making up on the spot. So you can't, like a character doesn't excuse everything.
Yes.
Because when they go see a play like The Mockingbird and people say and do horrible racist stuff, they don't chase the actors down the street because they're horrible racists because they know they're playing a part. But in improv, there's that gray line. I'm like, it's really hard to do satire and play a racist character in improv because what if your scene partner doesn't get it?
Yeah.
You end up doing a scene where you're just spouting enough racist stuff because you want to do satire, but all you sound like is a raging racist.
Yeah.
Then people will chase you to the bar. So it was a way longer conversation than he probably thought it was going to be.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, and like I always use what's Michael Scott as the character from The Office. Like,
Yeah,
that's not Steve Carell, but that is how Steve Carell sees a man who wants both power and to be popular. And how and wants to be liked and loved, but feared, like, in a particular way. That is how he sees it. So, understanding that, you are saying a truth because that's what his truth is. That's how I see this character. So that's how I portray him. Rather than use words, I'm just gonna, act as if I'm that character. That's why I get annoyed when people do the whole "that's what she says" unironically around me, especially like when I'm at work. Like, you realize Steve Carell is making fun of people who say that like that because they're not smart enough to make a joke when he's totally capable of actually making it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this question came at the end of class too. So where I ended my discussion of what we talked about was when he left, and literally the moment he left, I was like, oh, one more thing, because he was an elementary ed major. And the other side of all this, elementary education. Yeah. And so the other side is play theory. Like, kids don't feel like they're lying when they play, because that you just play. And yeah, being mommy right now, right? Like, there's that side of it too. Like, as adults, we need the character stuff, but it comes to us naturally because play comes to us naturally as we are growing up. And play isn't, when we say the word play, we think like silly, nonsensical, non-meaningful stuff, when really play for children is how they see stuff, and then they're trying to learn what it is. It's why we played house, because we all grew up in a house.
It's them doing a puzzle, like, and applying puzzle theory to life situations.
Right.
Then
we also talk about improv helped me figure out some things, right? Like, being more vulnerable, or being at least open to being more vulnerable, and being okay with situations that I'm not in control of. On and on and on. And I'm like, if this stuff isn't clicking with you guys, that's fine. There's, some people find the exact same things in martial arts, or pottery, or painting, or any number of things. The point is that you're seeking them out, and you're finding a way to try and help you see the world a little differently, and maybe help you deal with it a little bit more, rather than sitting at home and becoming the Unabomber. So,
well, we talk about, what's a job description of an improv instructor? It's not to teach someone how to be funny. It's, allowing them to play, or, giving them permission to play. And like you said, the definition of play isn't being silly. It's letting go of all that socialized stuff that we gain as we become adults, because we're conditioned to, act a certain way. Some good, some bad, some is just, like I said, we talked about the wall we put around ourselves. It's dropping that, being on stage and having a spotlight on you can be empowering, but it can also be scary. You can't hide.
I think if I was going to write a job description, I mean, there would be a lot of bullet points, but I think the top one would be creating a safe space for people to do all that stuff in.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to call people out on stuff. Sometimes in a kind of way, and sometimes it's just pointing them out subtly. And the flip side of that is, like, how do you find a way to get the shy people, quiet people, to come out and do the same thing, and do all of that? That's the biggest thing. It's like teaching. If you're an overbearing, angry dude who teaches third grade, it's hard to have a space where kids want to come in and explore and ask questions and do stuff. Like, no one wants to be in an authoritarian space, which is kind of a loaded term right now, but you kind of know the thing I'm going for.
Right.
There's a lot more bullet points for being a teacher, but I think that's the biggest one.
I agree.
I mean, we talk about Jenny all the time, and she was like a hard-nosed, teacher, right? Like, she will tell you exactly what she thought, but not in a shitty way, except for that one time.
Well, he had it coming, so.
Correct. But those are when you look back at your teachers at the time, the ones you thought were pretty cool, probably in hindsight were the worst teachers. Not always, but maybe cool isn't the best term. Easy. Like, that class was easy, and then you look back and it's like, well, yeah, it was easy. We didn't do anything.
Yeah, we just hung out.
We didn't learn anything. I got to do whatever I do. Yeah.
It was challenging, I would say.
Right. Yeah. It's the same.
I didn't really have that with my training. I was really lucky. Like, everybody was pretty cool, and I think it was because I was a big fan of the main stage, and
just to be clear, I was talking about, like, your education career, K-12, not education. It still applies, but when I was saying, like, when you look back at easy teachers, I wasn't talking about improv, because I didn't have any of those either. I just want everyone to know, PJ, your class at Second City was great.
Actually, do you want to hear a PJ story really quick?
Always.
So in my level B, so it would be like intro two.
Yeah.
Uh, I first had Dan Izzo, but that's when he really started getting the ball rolling on the Inferno. So he had to drop out halfway through the semester, and PJ took over. And PJ was great. PJ has always been a really good. He was always really cool. Plus, he was an eye candy. I don't know if I knew that. I can't remember. I had PJ twice. I can't remember if I knew that yet.
Yeah.
I had a class, and it was challenging, but I felt like what I did was really cool. And like after one of the exercises, like, hey Bob, I want to talk to you after class. So I was like, I didn't know what that meant. Like I felt, did I break improv? I'm not sure. So I think we went to break or something. He took me aside and he's like, hey man, I just want you to promise me you're gonna stick to this, what you did. And then like just gave me like all this praise, and it stuck with me. It was something I needed to hear, but B, I wanted to like pass that forward. So I think I think that's the great thing about being an instructor. You get those opportunities, especially like we were talking about people like you and I who didn't have an easy time at the beginning. Figuring out what our comedic voice would be.
Yeah.
Just taking someone aside and just like, hey, I've been there. I'm not going to say it gets easier instantly, but it can get. If you just stick to it.
Yeah. Just that was a more discriminate point of praise,
Yeah.
but sometimes the indiscriminate ones too. Like you're just
Oh, yeah.
chatting with someone at the bar, one of your teachers, and you're like, and they say something nice, and then like leave to go talk to their friends, and you're like,
Cool.
yeah. It's weird because I kept all that in mind when I was talking with people. Like I had never gotten to the point where none of that was in my brain when I was talking with people, like students.
Yeah.
Like I was always aware that I am now the teacher and or director of the training program, or I'm on the cast, and so they see me play regularly. So I'm like, I know what I'm saying is not just me being talking to some person at the bar. Like there's always, that's the other thing too, is being mindful that in non-class spaces
Right.
and teaching moments, if you're talking to a student at the bar or in the house before a show, like it's never just you. You always have that mantle now.
Yeah. Which is weird because, like, I mean, I understand why it's a thing. It just took me a minute for it to like really sink in because like most other artists or improvisers, like I still have that not low self-esteem, but I'm just aware of like every mistake I've made since I walked in the door. Can't this kid see? It took me 3 times to get out of a launch group. Why does he want to know what I'm saying? Why does he care? Or she or whatever, man.
Yeah. Uh, well, and sometimes it's like
Yeah.
you're having an issue that I never faced myself,
Yeah.
so I can give you an external analytical version, but I can't say like this is what I did, like because
Yeah.
it was never a thing for me.
Uh,
Oh, you can't be vulnerable on stage? Come on over here to this corner table.
yeah.
I'll be here all night.
Grab a whiskey. It's gonna be a minute.
Yeah, get a double.
Get into well, I think that's a good place to stop. Because good talk, man.
It's a good segue.
Good segue. See, James usually handles the segues. I'm getting there. Just a reminder, thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to us, check us out on Improv FAQ on Facebook. We're also a podcast, so you can find that on gabbermedia.com, or we're doing live shows every Sunday at 1 o'clock. If you're watching here, we'll be back. So you can see more of us. Hey, Garrett, I forgot to ask you before we start recording. Are you plugging anything? Do you have anything you need to plug or?
Not presently. Oh, well, I guess I could say if you're wanting to challenge yourself with some Zoom improv classes. Pointless's new term is starting up the first week of November. I think it's on
Awesome.
sale now. So,
Oh, yeah.
all levels.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks again, Gary. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been Improv FAQ, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.